The conflict between Israel and Palestine has raised many questions about the past and future of the two countries. Since the middle of the last century, Israel and Palestine have been in a state of permanent war and have been unable to reach a compromise. However, it is worth noting that Israel is a much more developed and powerful state. Therefore, the question immediately arises, can Israel, having such economic and military power, simply not seize the lands of Palestine and thereby resolve the long-running conflict? In this issue, we will discuss why Israel cannot actually take over Palestine. For several decades, Israel had virtually complete control over the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, but later relinquished it. Israeli troops significantly expanded their lands during the Six-Day War of 1967, when Israel, playing proactively, put the four largest civilian armies out of action in Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. Israeli aircraft attacked Arab planes and destroyed almost all of their aircraft on the ground. Thus, Israel won a crushing victory in this war and was able to expand its land threefold. Israel's territories include the Golan Heights, which are still disputed by Syria, the Sinai Peninsula, which was fully returned to Egypt in 1982, as well as the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, which are Palestinian territories. The latter was completely annexed by Israel, and the land was actually under Israeli occupation. Palestinian organizations left the territory but continued their struggle from Lebanon and Jordan, which became a problem for these countries. In general, with regard to the seizure of the West Bank lands, Jordan actually exercised control over these lands, which it was not really happy about. Local radicals posed a serious threat to the Jordanian monarchy, so in the late 80s, Israel and Palestine began negotiations, despite the fact that Palestinian organizations had previously considered the option of only the complete destruction of Israel. However, having lost real control over the territories, they decided to negotiate. An important stage was the signing of the Oslo Accords between Yitzhak Rabin, the Prime Minister of Israel, and Yasser Arafat, the chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization. The agreement was signed with the mediation of the United States. What did these agreements consist of? The agreement cemented relations between Israel and Palestine, established peace in the territories, and renounced violent struggle. At the same time, Israel transferred part of the land in the West Bank to the Palestinian Authority. The division looked like this, and it still does today. As we can see, Israel retained control over large areas, but transferred the lands inhabited by Arabs to the Palestinian Authority. The Gaza Strip was also transferred to the Palestinians. This agreement was supposed to resolve all conflicts between Israel and Palestine in the future. However, the reality turned out to be harsher. Radicals on both sides, both Jews and Arabs, were dissatisfied with the treaty. Bloodshed began again. The Israeli Prime Minister who signed the Oslo Agreement was soon assassinated by a Jewish radical. At the same time, there were massacres, both by Jews and Palestinians. The problem was that the Palestinian Authority in fact cooperated with the extremists and did not punish anyone. In the noughties, relations deteriorated again, leading to bloody clashes and shootings. After the failure of the Oslo Accords, the parties have not had close contact and are not going to make any concessions. Today's escalation is taking place in the context of all these events. Having dealt with how relations between Israel and Palestine developed, let's return to the main question: why can't Israel simply seize Palestine? And why did it agree to the Oslo Agreement, essentially voluntarily giving up part of the Palestinian territories it had controlled? The first and most important point is the disloyal population of the Palestinian territory. For example, after the occupation of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, the local population strongly opposed Israeli rule. Local residents had a strongly negative attitude towards Israel and supported various radical movements. Managing such territories caused many problems in terms of security and financial costs. The second point is the presence of radical extremist organizations in Palestine. The Israeli government had already been constantly confronted with Islamic radicalism on its lands during the establishment of the Israeli state. However, the lands of Palestine were overrun by radicals, which again caused tensions in the region. Jews were already being attacked around the world by Palestinian organizations, and with the occupation of Palestinian lands, their number increased, especially in the disputed territories. It is necessary to make a reservation again. An important problem was that local residents, as a rule, sympathized with radical organizations and assisted them in every way possible to liberate Palestine. Thus, already in 2006, Hamas won the elections to the Palestinian National Authority, garnering 73 votes out of 133. This reflects the real mood of the citizens. In general, it was extremely difficult to hold such a territory because of the constant threat of attack, as well as the massive disloyalty of the local population to Israel. It is worth noting that since the noughties, Palestine has been overgrown with a huge system of underground tunnels that can be used to wage a protracted guerrilla war, and smuggling can also take place through them. Many of the tunnels are hidden, allowing Palestinians to appear unexpectedly in different cities and then quickly disappear from view. Even Israeli intelligence does not know how many of these tunnels actually exist and where they are located. Despite the fact that Israel has repeatedly violated international law, it seems that the country does not care about the reaction of other states. However, this is not the case. The United States of America has a huge influence on Israel, and if it is dissatisfied with Israel's policies, the Jews will be forced to retreat. This happened twice with the Sinai Peninsula, which Israel captured in 1956 and then in 1967. In both cases, Israel was forced to leave the peninsula because of pressure from the United States and threats to cut off arms supplies. The international reaction to the occupation or annexation of Palestinian lands will be immediate, which in principle could affect Israel's political and economic situation. Again, the most important in this case will be the reaction of the United States, which still provides military assistance to Israel. Today, pro-Palestinian views are quite popular among Americans, and the last thing worth mentioning is the impossibility of annexing Palestinian lands because of the threat of losing their own nation-state. In this case, there would be more Palestinians than Jews. The bottom line is that the very idea of Israel was based on the principles of Zionism, i.e., the main goal was to create a state for Jews in the ancient lands of Israel. If the State of Israel annexes the entire territory of Palestine and grants citizenship to all its inhabitants, Israel will cease to be a national state, and millions of Palestinians will be granted the right to vote, which will simply change the country's policy beyond recognition. That is why the Israeli government opposes the creation of a joint state of Arabs and Jews. Even after the Israeli army occupied the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in 1967, these lands were simply occupied but not annexed to Israel. To summarize, Israel is generally not interested in seizing Palestinian lands, as it faces many problems with them, from disloyal populations and extremist groups. Moreover, with the annexation of the land, Israel will lose its status as a Jewish state, which will essentially destroy the country's sense of existence. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel to not miss new videos.
I never answer to no, man, I still go.